Victoria's voice exploded through my kitchen like a plate shattering on tile. When my daughter-in-law screamed, "Get out!" she wasn't just yelling, she was trying to erase me from the home I legally owned. Something about the way she said it. I don't know. Maybe she didn't just want the house. Maybe she wanted me to disappear? I was standing at the stove, making scrambled eggs when she just lost it. "I can't take this anymore. You need to leave my house right now." Her face was purple with rage, finger pointing at the door like she could rewrite my life with one finger. "This is my house too, Victoria," I said quietly. "That was before," she screamed. "Before I knew what it would actually be like living with you." Robert sat at the breakfast table with his coffee, same spot where I'd served him cereal for 18 years. He looked up from his phone for 2 seconds, then went right back to scrolling. Didn't say a word. "I want my own space," Victoria continued, voice getting hysterical. "I want to decorate my house my way, without asking permission from someone who should be in a retirement home." Robert finally looked up, but not to defend me. "Maybe we should talk about living arrangements that work better for everyone." Victoria slammed dishes into the sink. "Robert, look at this situation. This is exactly why elderly parents shouldn't live with adult children." And you know what the worst part was? My own son didn't say a word to defend me. 43 years of memories in this house, reduced to me being some burden that needed removing. But Victoria had no idea what she was really demanding I leave behind. If you've ever felt unwelcome in your own home, you'll understand why this moment is burned into my memory forever. After Victoria stormed out and Robert disappeared into his office, I sat alone thinking about how we got here. Frank and I bought this house in 1981 when Robert was a baby. Every room tells a story. The kitchen where I taught Robert to cook, the living room where we opened Christmas presents, the bedroom where Frank and I planned our future. Frank died 18 months ago. Heart attack, quick and brutal. Victoria moved in 3 weeks later. 3 weeks. She didn't ask if I was ready, just showed up with boxes and decorating magazines, already planning to update everything. "This place feels so dated," she'd said. "Everything needs to be modernized." Dated, like me. Victoria grew up in suburban McMansions where nothing had history. She couldn't understand why I wanted to keep Frank's reading chair or our old kitchen table. But here's what Victoria didn't know. Frank wasn't just a good husband, he was brilliant with money. After he died, I found investment accounts I'd never heard of, real estate in other states, stock portfolios growing quietly for decades. Frank had built us security, and he'd hidden it where only I would think to look. In the basement, behind the old water heater, in a fireproof safe, Victoria would never find because she thought basements were creepy. For 18 months, I'd kept this secret, partly from grief, partly to see how my family would treat me when they thought I had nothing. Well, now I knew. Some truths hide in basements that others find too scary to explore. The next morning, Victoria returned with brochures and that fake sweet voice she used for manipulation. "Eleanor, I've been researching wonderful options for you." She spread pamphlets across my table. Sunrise Manor, Golden Years Community, every one showing elderly people playing board games and smiling at camera. "Look at these beautiful facilities, 24-hour care, meal plans, activities, so much social interaction with people your own age, people my own age." As if 68 made me a different species. "I talked to Robert last night," she continued. "He agrees that independent living would be better for everyone." The next day, Victoria took it further. She mentioned my memory issues to our neighbor Mrs. Patterson, loud enough for me to hear through my window. "We're just worried about Eleanor living alone. Sometimes elderly people don't realize when they need help." At first I thought she was just, I don't know, stressed about living arrangements. But then, she wasn't moving me out, she was moving me down. Elderly people, memory issues. She was building a public case for my incompetence. That evening, Robert called me into his office. Same speech, different voice. "Mom, maybe Victoria's right about downsizing. This house is a lot for one person." One person, as if I didn't count as a full human being anymore. "I'll think about it," I promised. But I'd already made my decision. If you've ever watched people plan your future without even asking what you want, you'll understand why I stopped arguing and started preparing. Victoria's house tours became obvious about what she really wanted. "This dining room would make a perfect nursery," she said, measuring where Frank's china cabinet had stood for 30 years. I just watched her, didn't say much. "And this living room needs to be opened up," she continued. "Modern families need open concept." She showed me Pinterest boards, renovations, changes. "Frank spent a lot of time in the basement," I said carefully. He always said it was important to use every part of a house. Victoria made a face. That creepy basement? We'll probably just seal it off. The following week, I found out Victoria had been researching locksmiths. She'd asked Robert about updating the security and getting new locks for my peace of mind. New locks that she would control. Later, I realized Robert's silence during all these confrontations wasn't confusion, it was convenient. They saw an old woman. I felt my throat tighten, because they were already rehearsing my absence. Friday morning, I found Victoria giving a contractor a tour of my living room. "We want to take down this wall," she was saying, pointing like she was sentencing it to death, "and replace these old wood floors." Old wood floors Frank and I had refinished by hand our first summer here. "Victoria," I said steadily, "I haven't agreed to any renovation." "Eleanor, we discussed this. You're moving to assisted living, remember?" "I haven't agreed to move anywhere." Victoria's face flushed. "This is ridiculous. You can't live here forever." The contractor looked uncomfortable. "Ma'am, I need written authorization from the property owner." "I am the owner," Victoria snapped. "Actually," I said quietly, "the deed is still in my name." Victoria's face went purple. "That's just a technicality. This house belongs to our family now." "I am family too." "Not anymore." Victoria completely lost it, started screaming like a banshee. "I am done. Get out. Get out of my house right now." Robert came running, looking panicked. "Victoria, calm down." "No, I want her gone. I can't stand one more minute." My son stood there looking more worried about his wife's embarrassment than his mother being aimed at. "Maybe it would be better if you stayed somewhere else for a few days," Robert said carefully. Victoria was breathing hard, face purple with rage. "I want her stuff packed and gone by this weekend." But Victoria had no idea what she was really demanding I pack and leave behind. That evening, after Victoria had stopped screaming and Robert had retreated to avoid dealing with anything, I made my decision. For 18 months, I'd kept Frank's secret, but Victoria screaming "get out" at me had crossed a line. "Robert, Victoria, I need you both to come downstairs. There's something I need to show you." Victoria appeared, still measuring for furniture. "The basement? I don't want to look at Christmas decorations or whatever junk is down there." "This isn't about decoration," I said calmly. "This is about why I won't be leaving this house." Robert looked tired. "Mom, can't this wait?" "Victoria's stress is about to get much more complicated," I said, heading for the stairs. "Both of you, follow me." Victoria complained the whole way down about the smell and creepy atmosphere. I led them behind the old water heater to the corner Victoria had never explored. "Frank spent a lot of time down here," I said, running my hand along what looked like ordinary wall panels. "He said it was important to keep valuable things where others wouldn't think to look." I pressed the hidden latch, and the panel swung open to reveal a fireproof safe built into the concrete wall. Victoria's eyes went wide. "What is that?" "Your reality check," I said, entering the combination Frank had taught me. The safe door opened like a treasure chest, revealing documents that would change everything Victoria thought she knew about power and money. "Those were your exact words," I said quietly, pulling out the first folder. "And you said them to the wrong woman." Victoria stepped backward, staring at bank statements and investment portfolios that rewrote our family's financial reality. In that moment, she didn't see money. She saw that she had been wrong about me as a woman. That's not possible," she whispered. I held up a Microsoft stock certificate. "Frank bought this in 1986. I didn't need permission. I never did." Documents kept coming. Real estate investments, dividend-paying stocks that had compounded for decades, municipal bonds, certificates of deposit. "But you live so simply," Victoria stammered. "You clip coupons. That's how you build wealth," I said. "Frank taught me that people who look rich usually aren't, and people who are rich usually don't look it." Robert's mouth hung open. "Mom, is all this real?" "Every penny legally earned and invested," I said. "Your father spent 43 years building security for this family." I pulled out property deeds, not just for this house, but for rental properties generating income for years. "The basement you wanted to seal off," I said, looking directly at Victoria, "houses the proof that I never needed anyone's permission to exist in my own home." Victoria slumped against the wall. "You let me think you were just a poor widow. I let you show me exactly who you are when you think you have power over someone helpless," I said. "And what you showed me was someone who turns cruel the moment she thinks she has leverage." Robert stared at documents revealing decades of growth he'd never known existed. "Why didn't you tell me?" Because your father wanted to see how our family would treat each other when money wasn't a factor. He wanted to know if you'd take care of me because you loved me, not because you needed me. The basement went silent except for Victoria's shaky breathing and papers rustling. Some secrets hide in basements that others find too scary to explore. The silence stretched until I thought someone might faint. Victoria was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. "Eleanor," she whispered, "I had no idea. I thought you were struggling financially." "The only thing I was struggling with was being treated like a burden in my own home," I said. Victoria picked up a real estate deed with trembling fingers. "You own apartment buildings? 3 of them in Florida. They've been providing rental income since your father retired." "I failed that test, didn't I?" Victoria said, tears running down her face. "You told me to leave, like I was nothing," I said. "In a house I've paid for in more ways than you understand." Robert looked up from scattered papers. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have defended you." "Yes, you should have," I agreed. Victoria was crying harder. "I almost destroyed everything. I almost threw away." She couldn't finish the sentence, couldn't say what she'd almost lost. "You did have power," I said. "The power to be kind or cruel to someone you thought was helpless, and you chose cruelty." But then Victoria asked something that stopped me cold. "How do I fix this? How do I apologize for something this awful?" For the first time since Frank died, I saw something real in her eyes instead of manipulation. We sat in that basement until nearly midnight, with Victoria asking questions she should have asked months ago. "How much of what I said about assisted living was actually about your welfare?" she said, voice thick with shame. "None of it," I said honestly. "You wanted me out so you could renovate without interference." Robert examined a dividend check larger than his mortgage payment. "All this time, I thought I was helping support you." "You were supporting me emotionally," I said, "until you stopped defending me." "I was scared," he admitted. "I took the easy path." Victoria held a stock certificate like it might bite her. "When you were clipping coupons, I thought it meant you couldn't manage money." "Those habits are exactly how Frank and I accumulated this wealth," I explained. The revelations were shocking, but the personal ones cut deeper. "I treated you like a charity case," Victoria said, voice breaking. "You treated me like someone whose opinions didn't matter because you thought I had no power," I corrected. Robert looked around with new eyes. "Dad tried to talk to me about investing once. I told him it was boring." The weight of missed opportunities hung heavy in the air. "What happens now?" Victoria asked. "That depends," I said, "on whether you've actually learned anything or if you're just sorry you got caught." The weeks that followed changed everything. Victoria couldn't look at me the same way ever again. The woman she'd screamed "get out" at turned out to be someone who had never needed their help or permission. She apologized with the kind of humility that comes from learning a brutal lesson about assumption. "Eleanor, I'm so sorry. I thought I was dealing with a dependent elderly relative when I was actually attacking an independent woman." "Some people live small to keep their wealth private," I said, giving her room to learn. Robert helped me organize Frank's legacy properly, finally paying attention to financial wisdom he'd ignored for 30 years. Victoria started visiting for different reasons, not to push me out, but to learn about money, about Frank's strategy, about family stories she'd never bothered to ask for. "How did he know which investments to choose?" she asked one afternoon. "He read everything. He understood that patience pays better than quick profits." The renovation plans disappeared. Victoria stopped measuring for new furniture and started asking about the stories behind the pieces Frank and I had chosen. Christmas felt different that year, like a family again, instead of a war zone. Victoria gave me a beautiful photo album for documenting Frank's investment philosophy. Robert's gift was a consultation with a financial advisor to help me understand Dad's strategy. But the most important change was how they saw me, not as the burden who needed removing, but as the guardian of a life she built herself. Sometimes the people who scream loudest about what's theirs understand the least about what they actually possess. Sometimes what looks like dependence is actually independence carefully disguised. And sometimes the most powerful response to "get out" is opening a door that shows exactly who belongs where. If you've ever been made to feel like you should disappear to make others comfortable, this story is for you. You don't owe silence to anyone who benefits from your absence. Your home matters, your dignity matters, and sometimes a basement doesn't just store old things, it stores proof that the people who look powerless often hold the most power of all. Healing begins the moment you stop shrinking to make room for others.